Welcome to TEDCO's Entrepreneur Expo in downtown Baltimore, where the region's top business owners, innovators, and investors have gathered to network, grow, and celebrate the vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Maryland region. I'm Frew with BioBuzz Networks, and I'm honored today to be here with Rachel Rath, head of JLABS Washington, D.C. Rachel, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
My pleasure. Would you take a couple minutes to just introduce our audience to you and to what you do at JLABS?
Absolutely. I'm Rachel Rath, the head of JLABS at Washington, D.C. And JLABS at Washington, D.C. is part of the global JLABS network. JLABS is the incubator arm of Johnson & Johnson. So we're a no-strings-attached incubator model supporting early-stage companies around the world. So it's my privilege to get to lead our site here in the Mid-Atlantic, which is based at JLABS at Washington, D.C., where we've been open for about 3 years now, supporting early-stage companies across this region. So currently, we have about 45 companies connected into our site. That we're across innovative medicine in the pharma space, as well as med tech, and we're helping companies through programming and mentorship and visibility and physical space where they need it from a lab or office perspective, hit those critical inflection points on their way to commercialization.
Could you unpack that a little more for me and tell, what are some of those programs that you do offer? How do you companies take advantage of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we think about the ways that we support companies as really different wraparound opportunities, both the tangible, when we think about that physical space that companies may need, right? Whether it's biolabs or chemistry labs, cell culture space, prototyping space for medical devices, or if it's office space, as well as the intangibles. So companies that come into JLABS get mentorship from Johnson & Johnson, and that's both scientific mentorship from different therapeutic area experts, as well as whether it's regulatory or marketing, other things that are business critical to making their companies successful. And then companies also have a lot of programming and visibility opportunities. So we bring in experts, whether that's on the venture side of things, right? Raising money is always an important part of what these startups are trying to do, or again, on the regulatory side. We also do a lot of programming and visibility opportunities. So how do we position the companies into the market so that they're getting the visibility and the recognition really to drive their science forward as well. So other types of connectivity as well, whether that's on the venture side or service providers, but we think about how we can holistically help companies advance their science.
And tell me a little bit about your relationship with TEDCO and the collaborative efforts that you and TEDCO are working together.
Absolutely. And you mentioned we're here at this fantastic event, and this is a great example of how we like to engage with the ecosystem. So there are several JLABS companies who are part of the agenda today, which is really exciting to see, both in speaking spots as well as exhibiting in the hall, showing off their exciting technologies. So we engage across the region. So I referenced us as sort of sitting here in the Mid-Atlantic. We're JLABS at Washington, D.C. We are based in the district, but we don't just support companies here. I should say we don't support companies just in the district. A lot of our companies are sitting in Virginia as well. They're sitting in Maryland. So one of our really great areas of synergy and overlap with TEDCO is a phenomenal resource and support that they bring to companies supporting Maryland. So we have companies that may have physical space at JLABS at D.C. and elsewhere in Maryland. That are part of the TEDCO portfolio as well. So when we think about that almost overlap of the Venn diagram of JLAB's portfolio and TEDCO portfolio, it's really how can we support those companies in the overlap. In addition, I would say both JLABS and TEDCO are really here to support and enhance the ecosystem. So we're very committed to creating a thriving innovation ecosystem. And part of doing that is working really synergistically together, and that includes the mentorship and the programming and visibility opportunities that can maybe beyond companies just in Maryland. I will say here, we're seeing companies from Virginia and from outside of Maryland here today as well.
I think you make a great point around an important point to our audience to understand is what the greater ecosystem looks like. They call it the capital region, right?
Yep.
So you're in DC, Virginia, Maryland. Could you talk to me a little bit about that? How do you describe to someone who's not in the area, what this ecosystem's like, why it's such a great place to start a company, and maybe kind of your vision for what it can become?
One of the things I think is so interesting is I think from the outside of this region, people can think of it as really pretty confined. but we actually cover a pretty broad geographic area. We're up in Baltimore today, right? It's not a stone's throw, I don't know, from DC. We're down into Virginia. So the geography that we cover is actually pretty widespread. And I think that's important for our ecosystem, and it speaks to the strengths. This area has incredible talent, looking at the universities, but also the federal partners that are based here. And that's talent directly to support the companies, but also candidly just the expertise. So many of the stakeholders that you see out there today at this event have spent decades in government, working in regulatory, interacting with regulatory agencies, going after non-dilutive funding, maybe writing non-dilutive funding announcements that companies are going after. So the talent and the expertise is incredibly robust. I do think there's a lot that we can still do to bring the various partners in the ecosystem. I know that you all are trying to do that as well, come together more so we have this united support system for companies across the region.
It's a great vision. I think it's, I often say entrepreneurs don't see geographic boundaries.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, arguably in DC, though, you do have to cross a river. Right? The Virginia to DC border, when you're crossing bridges, can be hard to maybe miss.
Sounds like JLABS is kind of making bridges, though.
That's our goal. And I would say, we don't see the boundaries between the states. And one of the things that's been exciting to see here is companies outside of Maryland and Virginia who want to set up their footprints here in the biohealth capital region. So we have companies that connect into us virtually from Minneapolis, right? But they're building relationships here in this region, and this is where they want to be tethered to from a strategic standpoint. So it's exciting to see these companies really from all over the country and all over the world build their connectivity here into our regions.
Are there any success stories or new programs that you're excited about that you can share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a really exciting year. 2024 has been a real year of growth for JLABS at Washington, D.C., and I think 2025 is going to be even more exciting. A couple of success stories. It's been a tough year for funding for early stage companies. We've had a number of our portfolio companies successfully close rounds. So I think that's very exciting for them. And what that allows them to do is continue to advance those solutions for patients. It allows them to continue hiring talent and expanding those teams here in the region. So the companies that have raised those rounds, really big success. I'd say on the other side, we've had companies that have had their first successful SBIR applications, right? That also is a success and a big accomplishment for those companies. We've had several JLABS DC companies successfully get funding from ARPA-H. One of them in particular, Algometrics, got multi-million dollars from the Women's Sprint Initiative. So that's an extremely exciting accomplishment for that company. Our JLABS at Washington, D.C. location is anchored on the Children's National Research and Innovation Campus. That company is actually a Children's National spinout that has moved into JLABS. Now seeing them get these exciting opportunities to move their science forward, it's fantastic. We've also recently had a number of companies move in to start their U.S. Footprints here in this area. So one company in particular, an Israeli company, recently set up what's their U.S. entity here based on the local talent coming out of this ecosystem. So they hired a new chief scientific officer who's based here, and they're building out that scientific team here around that individual based on local talent. So also extremely exciting to see the pull into our ecosystem. So listen, I can talk all day about success stories for this region and things that I think have been particular highlights of 2024, but I think there's just more to come in 25.
So come back next year because the list is going to be longer is what I hear.
Absolutely. It gets longer every year, right?
Well, biotech or medtech commercialization innovation does take many years. Right? And you mentioned some success stories, but all these companies need really strong partners like TEDCO, like JLABS to help them get there. And we appreciate everything you do in the partnership to help these companies grow here in the Mid-Atlantic, here in the capital region, where, again, you're building bridges and building companies. So thank you for your time today and helping to share all that you're doing with us. I'll let you get back out to the program where you can network with all your, JLABS companies that are here today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, my pleasure. My name is Chris Frew with BioBuzz Networks. We're here live today at the TEDCO Expo in Baltimore.